All righty. Grand Rising, everyone. It's Ron. It is Saturday, January 10th, a little after 10 a.m. We are get started, see where we are, see if we have any questions, and go from here. Anyone, questions or comments?
Hey, Ryan. This is Charles. I
Good
have
morning, sir.
one.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to say nothing right now until you talk about what you talked about on Monday, and then I can, ask my question.
Well, I thought Pastor was coming on right away. Maybe he's delayed, but why don't you go ahead and ask your question, and maybe it'll kind of waken us up as to what we talked about Monday, because I'm usually don't remember, Charles.
Okay, I'm gonna need your help. It's in Genesis, third chapter, and hold on. Uh, third chapter in the
Now, is this the question that you asked the other night? Yeah.
no,
Okay.
this is different. You're going back to creation, and the main verse I'm focusing on is 15. But you might have to go back up and read uh, from it was talking about um, when Satan when not Satan when the serpent deceived Eve to get her to eat from the tree, and she ate. Then the man and her husband was right beside her and got her to eat. And the main theory I'm looking at that I don't understand when he was uh telling each one of them uh what's going to happen,
Hmm.
and the 15th verse where it said, "And I will put empathy between you and the woman, and between your seed and his seed." Now, well, I think that what they say. Hold on, make sure. Yeah, her seed, and I mean, he shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on his heel.
I tell you what,
Okay,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to understand who is they talking about? Why he had to put empathy between the woman seed and her? I mean, the woman and between your seed. That thing I can't get. Your seed and her seed.
Um,
That's what I'm trying to understand,
mhm.
because the serpent one deceived her, and we were all told, and we know it's not a fruit, and and when the serpent, when he told her, he was telling her the same thing, and and when he did tell her that God is God, you wouldn't surely die when you eat of this fruit. You would become like him, knowing good and evil. And then she turned to the tree and started seeing the desire and stuff of it. And then she picked and ate. Nothing didn't happen until the man ate. And so when the man ate, everything unfolded to him. And so when God came to man, and man hid himself from him and talked to God. And he said, I heard you the first time when you came in the garden, but we were scared. No, he said, we was naked. And then God said, who told you you was naked? You didn't eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from. And he said, the woman you gave me. And then he's tripping them down from the woman, from the man to the woman, and from the woman to the serpent. So all these three entities here, and I'm trying to understand why that what is this empathy between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed? He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel.
Okay,
Who was they talking about?
Charles.
Yes, sir.
Um, First of all, looking at that and hearing it, the word enmity talks about hostility. There will be hostility between the two of you. And it also says that it was the woman that you gave me. It also says that nothing really changed until the man built the fruit, or the knowledge, or had that experience. So my conclusion based upon those variables is that this was rewritten to put maleness in charge of everything. The woman is the one who caused the fall of man. The woman is the one who is the problem. Even if that were true, the man would be the problem because he did it. So I'm saying to you that this has to be looked at differently than what we have looked at it and what we are looking at it. It's going to take a minute, at least for me anyway, to be able to understand it with a clarity. That does not mean that there isn't someone who's listening right now who has input on that. However, I do maintain that this is a manipulation of the creation for the purpose of putting men in charge of, or over females, and denying the femininity of the Creator. I hope that helps.
It did, because on down below here, it was saying that you will. I'm thinking when it was saying that the woman will be give birth pain, and she will be for her husband, and he will
Oh,
rule over her.
that's what I'm talking about, Charles. All of that
Hmm.
was manipulated. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
To put men in the place where men are now in their mindset, believing that they are supposed to rule over the female,
Right.
which is totally wrong. However, I do want to see if there's anyone else who would like to speak to that.
Um, I'm I don't have anything to add, Pastor, but I guess Charles does make a good point. Is we have said for months now, we're going to take another look at the creation story, and so much is happening, so much is going on. We hadn't gotten back to that. Uh, but yeah, I agree with what your answer is, and Charles, it's hunger to understand this is appreciated, and so maybe it's something that we'll just make an effort to take a look at here.
Um, this is the only creation story, the only creation story that that minimizes the presence and the input of a female, of femininity. This is the only creation story that says your husband shall rule over you.
Hmm.
This is the only one. You say, well, the Islamic story is the same about creation. It is, because it's the same religion with variations. It's not that much difference between Christianity and Islam, or Judaism for that matter. But in other indigenous people stories about the creation, um, always mentions the divinity of femininity as opposed to presenting masculinity as being divine, with femininity being subject to the rulership of masculinity.
Yeah,
But so this is the only one that I know of anyway.
that speaks right there. It's hard to research something that has failed and been not failed, that is false and been made up.
Yes,
But
it's structurally wrong.
yeah. Anyone else throw any input or thoughts on it?
Yeah, grand rising, everybody. I can just corroborate that the fact that this creation story is the only one that does that, because I've looked at Native American ones, I've looked at Indian, meaning East Indian. I've looked at African ones, and none of them mention the woman as being evil.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The femininity is revered.
Yeah. And a part of the creation.
Hmm.
Major part. Major part. I mean, even when you look at it, when it talks about bringing into existence male and female, it's and he did, and he molded them. He made them. This whole idea of masculine divinity is so wrong. Am I saying that masculine is not divine? No, but I am saying that it has been given a part in creation that never existed. I think it's important that we understand this, and I understand also that there are belief systems that we have been given that makes it a bit different, if not difficult, to to actually dispense with this narrative that a man um, should have rulership over a female, and that this man, this masculine energy, is the creator of everything that is. I understand it's difficult to to walk away from that, or to dispense with that, because we have been told this for so long. But then, when you really think about it, if you are in control of education, religion, and everything else, if you tell a lie generation after generation after generation, it begins to feel true, even though it's not. If we are to believe this Genesis story simply because someone told us that, and the someone who told us that are the oppressors, then we believe the story of who we've been told that we are. We have been told that we are less than animals, that we're less than humans. We are barbarians. We are ignorant. We are this everything negative. And
Well, it doesn't even make sense from a logical perspective, because what you're saying is the man came before the womb. How is that possible?
it doesn't make sense. But then um, the presentation of religious lies has no logic to it, has no realness in it. Yet we believe it. And we don't believe it because we have deduced that is the right, that is, what you're saying is correct. We're not doing that. We're not believing it because of that. We're believing it because of subconscious fear and trauma. That's why we're believing it. Think about how unsettling was and still is for some people to say that Jesus never existed. Remember how unsettling that was in the beginning. That's generational trauma. We're afraid that we're going to hell. We're afraid that Jesus is not going to show up for us when we need him. We're afraid of all of those things that we were told we would be missing if we denied that Jesus existed. We're heathen. And the heck of it is, the heathen is the one who told us. So, but anyway, I do believe that at some point we will get back to Genesis in depth in terms of the creation. However, I do know at this time we are in a space where we are dealing with what's currently taking place with our people, with humanity. There are things that we have need to understand about ourselves as children of the sun before we are able to truly embrace the manifestation of balance for humanity. The work is being done, not necessarily all the work being done in our sessions, but I promise you the work is being done to bring this about. And our discussions are guided by the work that's being done. And a great deal of the work that's being done is simply being done by us being open and present to the ancestors, to the universe itself, and those things that we have been endowed with spiritually does not appear oftentimes until we begin to discuss different aspects of being divine, different aspects of humanity. So, unless there are further comments or questions about this creation story, I defer back to Ron so we can move forward. Audrey?
I think we have to always remember that none of this is literal.
Right.
So there are some spiritual truths in there that but we can't take it as literal. And I think that's what trips up a lot of us sometimes, because we want to see it as literal rather than just metaphor or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're right.
I
That's
wonder.
also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, no, I'm good. Go ahead.
I wonder if one of the layers of looking at this, because every time truth has that essence, um, you can pull back layers and layers of awareness, and I wonder if another layer has to do with what it's talking about in terms of head and heel. And the head generally means where wisdom and knowledge and thinking and access to the upper realm is, and the heel can represent grounding in the earthly consciousness. And I wonder if this is an example, a further example of the duality that was overlaid on top of this creation story. Whereas before, when you were talking about an hermaphrodite, one that the head and the heel are intact in the same entity for the same purpose. The head receives the information and often guides the foot or heel where to go, and it can work in accord because it's one entity. Whereas feminine energy and masculine energy works as one entity, then there is no discrepancy between what the head wants to do and what the heel does. But in this one, it talks about the heel, and the heel can represent that grounding in earthly consciousness, if you will, and therein lies part of the hostility. We talk about Achilles' heel. We talk about Jacob grabbing the heel. And again, I'm not talking about the actual person. I'm talking about the essence of the spiritual meaning of it. The heel can represent struggle. It can represent victory also. So it to me is looking at the and further separating, if you will, the alignment of head and heel, of one body, of one entity, with one purpose and one direction, if you will. It just further separates, puts that separation in there. Is the way I look at it also.
While you were saying that, Barbara, I was looking at, while you were talking, I'm sorry, I was looking at bruise and head and bruise and heel. Bruise itself means to overwhelm. To overwhelm the thought process, or to overwhelm the journey. She shall overwhelm your journey, or that's, to me, I don't see how to put that together yet, but I do see that it does, one of the meanings is to overwhelm. So is it that we are to make an effort rather to see what these words mean from the Hebrew, and make sense out of them by connecting these words to form an understanding. I don't see it clearly yet, but I do believe at some point it will be seen. But I don't believe that it will be seen without our being shown what the true essence of what's being said here. And keeping in mind, of course, as Audrey said, that this is not literal. It is metaphorical. So
yeah, but I like where Barb is going with it, though, because it sounds to me like it's essentially talking about about the conscious self, and the head being knowledge, the foot being earth consciousness, um, and a knowledge of good and evil can either allow the unconscious self to pursue spiritual things, or to pursue earthly things, physical, or or yeah, earthly consciousness things like money, blah blah blah, that kind of thing.
Art, it shall bruise thy head, speaking to the, for lack of a better term, for understanding's sake, rather, shall bruise thy head, speaking to the female or femininity, right? It shall overwhelm your consciousness, and you will overwhelm his journey. Could it possibly be that the overwhelming of her journey, her consciousness, is actually an effort to overwhelm the divine nature of femininity? And
I can see
yes,
that.
yes, yes.
and as a result of that, the heel being bruised is that you will trip yourself up, or you will be tripped up in your efforts to overwhelm the consciousness of the female, of femininity. So
So if bruises are uh, not only being overwhelmed, but it's also it signifies some kind of damage. If you just look at it from a bruise shows something that has happened, some trauma, something that has happened, some attack, if you will, has happened.
yeah.
And so spiritually, same thing happens in terms of a spiritual a consciousness. A bruise can indicate some kind of emotional or energetic injury to consciousness, whether it's consciousness, spiritual, from the spiritual perspective of knowing who you are, and being who you are, or and the heel can also represent being attacked, if you will, in some way. And so I resonate with what you're saying also about masculine and feminine energy, because this is a further indication of the duality that's occurring, and the misalignment that we are not seeing in this, of the masculine and feminine energy working as one entity, as one spiritual entity. And so I see all of the points that have been shared.
So, am I don't want to overthink this, but when someone walks, your heel is the first to touch the ground, right? It specifically, it did not say foot. It says your heel. Am I, is there something more to that? If you were, I hear what everybody's saying, and I agree with you.
But that's why I said the bruising of the heel
Did it?
is a trip you up. Because if your
Okay.
heel doesn't touch the ground first, you fall, you stumble.
Yeah. Okay.
I can see. However, I still maintain that the portion that speaks to the feminine being the problem is an insertion as opposed to a reality.
Okay. I also, I'm sorry, Pastor, you have something
I
else?
just go ask, does this resonate with the
Does with me?
discussions that we're having?
Yeah.
It resonated a whole lot more than what I had got out of it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Because what's being said it really is resonating with me.
Yeah. I was just going to add something I thought was interesting. Audrey said interesting in this. Uh, I too was looking at something several months ago, and of course I don't have the source. I'd have to go back and find it. But being careful what you get online. But Audrey mentioned other creation stories because I found some stuff too from an African perspective, and I thought were interesting. And I wouldn't mind if we kind of look at those a little closer one day, at least one or two of them. And I just think that would be interesting compared to what we've been taught from the scriptures. If there's any relevance to it, anything that's valuable in that.
Sure.
Okay.
One final thing as it relates to what a heel does physically. What a heel does is it's a weight it's a weight bearing support. It's a weight bearing support to the rest of the body. It stabilizes and it protects. And you know, we've talked about the spiritually, the woman is a protector, is a sheath of protector for masculine energy. So the feminine energy does that. And so I don't think it's an accident that it talks about the head and the heel, bruising of the head of masculine energy, of the essence of masculine energy, and the heel of the essence of feminine energy. The two must be combined, must be one in order to be most effective in functioning, not only as a physical entity, but most importantly as a spiritual essence. They both are needed. They support each other. When a decision is made at the head, without the heel as the protection and the weight bearing, the support, what action needs to be done cannot be done. It cannot move. It cannot go anywhere from a physical perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, there's inhibition there. It inhibits, with those two being divisive, there's an inhibition to spiritually moving forward as one entity. So, another layer.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, Ron, I got another question. You know,
Okay.
when you were talking about the heel hit first, and it was always say heel, then toe, and the rest of everything else flatten out then when you walk. So I understood that when you had talked about it.
Yeah, Bob went into it some too. I was trying to see it from a spiritual perspective. Yeah, I just thought that meant something, Charles, and I, I love the way we have these discussions because we see more. Uh, I think that we find more in it than the actual editors intended for us to find. Those who made changes to these scriptures. So I always thought that was interesting. While we're discussing this, something else came to mind. Since we're talking about feminine masculine energy, I had written down something I found again several weeks ago. I looked up helpmate years ago, and it doesn't say this again. I was trying to find in the scripture to see what it says now because this too has been changed. But what I had written down several years ago is helpmate talks about to hedge in, to protect, to surround. And it also means to stand against and oppose. Uh, that sound to me more like a description of a mother than anything else. Uh, the standing against and opposing mean I'm going to protect you from yourself. Uh, and you know, as the femininity surrounding and protecting you, as it reminded me of the scripture of the being a hen. I'm going to protect you as a hen protects her young, or whatever the scripture goes. But I'm just saying a lot of stuff that's been added and taken away from this. I think still reveals more than it was originally intended for it to.
Um, I remember having looked that up myself, Ron,
Hmm.
in regards to the hedge and the opposition.
Yeah.
I saw that as you said, as a mother, is a protector for that child, but at the same time, that mother is also a challenge in opposition to those things that could hinder that child.
Yes.
Um, and if you take that and look at it exponentially, we'll see that femininity is not only a protector, but is also a challenge
Mm.
to guide us in the correct direction. I'm gonna tell you something that I noticed when I'm interacting with the ancestors. For some reason, to me, what in my thoughts, the ancestors, it was always feminine, and I didn't view or I didn't think about my interaction with the ancestors as being both feminine and masculine until you made that statement last week about Imam Baraka. Um, these people are the peoples who are interacted with in life in this earth, and now they are gods from the other side.
Mhm.
I never thought about it being feminine, and I don't even know the reason that it was always, to me, the ancestors have always been feminine. And it may very well be because um, I grew up in a family where the overwhelming majority of the people in the family are feminine. We don't have that many males in our family. So I thought that was interesting with me, and I was wondering if anyone has had that same experience. And maybe the experience I'm having with the femininity of it is to be as a reminder that it's the womb that came first, and it's
Yeah.
the femininity that's the spiritual creator. Uh, has anyone had that experience?
Mm.
Okay,
Yes, sir. You're not the only one. I'm not sure why, but I felt something similar.
thank you.
And just I was talking with my friend Des, and she was saying that when she envisions the ancestors, it's also a group of women standing behind her. So there's something there.
Yeah, could it be because it's God, femininity, the creator? I don't know,
Hmm.
but thank you for sharing.
Sure.
It's funny that we're,
Pastor,
go ahead, Evelyn.
I'll let you finish.
It's funny that we're talking about at some point we're going to talk about the creation, and we have already actually delved deeper into it, the understanding of it, than we have in the past. So I believe that this was the day to lay it out there in a way that reiterates the not only the manipulation, but more importantly, the feminine aspects of creation and the reality that without femininity, there could not have been creation. That's all I want to say.
Grand Rising, are you done, Pastor? I'm sorry.
I am.
Okay, Grand Rising family and honor to the ancestors. Pastor and family, I was watching a flame of fire in a fireplace. And in the flame, I saw feminine energy. It's like it was just women, and I'm just going to say women, that was in the flame. Can you speak on that, or is just, I just thought it was significant, and since we're talking about feminine energy, we look at, some of us look at the flame on a candlestick and how it waves or whatever. But when I looked at the flames in the fire, it's all I saw. I felt that it was this feminine energy. It's like when you're in church, when women are in church and how we would raise our hands. Like, I just can't explain what I saw. Could you help me see or give me your interpretation of what that could have been?
I don't purport to interpret it. However, I will say that fire represents purity. The same fire that can purify also can destroy. I know that for me, when I light my candle, one of my primary candle sits on top of candle stand. That's a female. The female is holding a basket on her head, and that's where I place my candle, because the light barrel is feminine, and that's my understanding behind having done that. So when you talk about having looked in the fire and the flames and see femininity, the only thing I can offer in that regard is what I see when my experience with the same thing. The candle has a single wick, and it sits on top of, as I said, the head in this cradle, and then the ones that sit on the table in front of the image of femininity, it has 3 wicks, and Isis, Osiris, and Heru. And when I am meditating, the 3 candles, the 3 wicks, when I am receiving, my eyes are closed, but I can see the flicker of the flames. And the whole time that those flames are flickering, I know that I'm receiving. Now, nothing is blowing them, obviously, because the one flame does not move at all. It may become elongated at times. However, when that one flame moves and flickers, as does the other 3, I always end up seeing something that I've never ever thought of before. And the only time I know that I have seen it is when I began to speak um, on it during the teachings, that's when I'm very much aware of what I have been shown, and all of it comes as a result of that feminine representation on that single flame. I see that's how I see the flame itself, Evelyn, as being. That's how I see it, as being feminine, and that's how I see it, as being a type of purification. Anyone else?
Can I say something to that right quick, Pastor?
Of course.
It's kind of funny that y'all brought up fire, because me and Azaria were talking about fire a couple of days ago, and she was saying that she was reading about fire reading, and they're like, it's. I mean, y'all can kind of research it for yourself, but it talks about how fire is purifying, and fire represents one of the four elements, and things like that, and it talks about how spiritually, like in the past, what the church would consider witchcraft, fire was very significant in the fact that, like, when people, like, even in Kabbalah, like they talk about when they would write down sigils and things like that, and the way that they gave, once they wrote down these sigils to manifest what they wanted to create, after they wrote them down, they would burn them to release the energy so that it could take place, so it could happen. And so fire is at one time, before we got introduced to Christianity, was a tool that we used to get things started and to do a lot of different things. And then people would, like, stare at the fire, and they would wait until they saw visions and things like that. And it reminds me back when Uzziah was little. Pastor Richard spoke at a church, and his message was, what is your burning bush? And Uzziah was a little bitty boy, and he used to walk around all the time, what is your burning bush? And I kind of laughed at that when you started talking about fire, because, like, the significance in that was that the bush wasn't being consumed by the fire. And so I just kind of thought about that when y'all started talking about fire.
What is your burning bush? I do believe that fire have a greater significance than we are aware of at this moment, and I do believe that that fire is present within us when we are meditating. And it's not only burn the dross, but it reminds us of the divinity that we are. It also, I do believe it reminds us that our thoughts are constantly being purified, so that we are able, or more able, to put purity in the macro, so that the thoughts of humanity can also be purified by virtue of our thoughts being placed in the macro. For example, this morning, when we started the conversation or the discussion about femininity and masculinity in Genesis, our thoughts about that were being purified as we discussed it. And the purification of our thoughts and our words resulted in an understanding, because our initial understanding of it was encapsulated in a shell that needed to be burned away so that so that we could see, we could experience, we could speak the truth about what it means. And that is an example to me anyway of the spiritual fire that purifies, and the physical fire is simply a reminder of that flame of purification that grants us a clarity of sight. When you look at the shamans or in African society, fire plays a very prominent part in the initiation rites for shamans and initiation rites for those who are reaching the age of maturity. Fire has always been spiritual to the African and to other indigenous people, as a matter of fact. Fire played a role of hostility, of enmity in our lives when we were introduced to Christianity. Prior to that, it was totally, totally different. It was, even when it's purified, it's a good thing. We did not see fire as being destructive at all. We saw it as being instructive. We saw it as being a method of burning the dross so we could truly see who we were created to be. I need to step away for a moment, please.
The shamans also used fire as a way, and a lot of the shamans that you're talking about were women, used fire as a way to focus and meditate, and it was believed that the flames were a portal between the physical and spiritual realms, because if you look at them long enough, you can get into a meditative state, and so it was believed that this was used to facilitate their travel to the spirit world, where they could commune with the ancestors and etc. So it can alter consciousness to that extent.
Thank
Robert,
you.
this is Evelyn. I'm glad you said that, because I had turned the TV off. Well, I had TV on, but I was just watching that flame, and excuse me. And I'm glad you said that now, because when I see that again, that flame, I want to think about what you just said, because what you said just resonated with me. Is what I wanted to say. And Ron, I know we waiting on Pastor to get back. How does what we just talked about, the purification, goes with the scripture when they talked about Noah, and it says that the world was destroyed by flood, but it won't be water but fire next time, which is purification. How does it line up with the conversation we're having this morning?
I think you just said it. The purification part of it. As we understand this, and as we, again, to me, when Barb was talking, to me, maybe every type of venue or avenue or portal that takes us to a meditative state is a type of purification, is a type of flame. So even this morning, or when we were talking about Genesis, where we go, and Pastor said we're going through a purification, is that part of that portal? So I think what it's talking about is, and this is me talking, anybody else, please feel free, that you are moved from a place of religion, you're moved from a place of seeing logic, you're moved from a place from being pure earthy and to see who you really are. it'll you will move to a place where you understand your purifications, you'll understand your meditations, and see that this has all been a spiritual journey, and what you have thought was real, what you have thought was meaningful and had value to you, had no value at all. So that's kind of what I see when you ask the question.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That resonates. Thank you.
Anybody else though? Anybody else see that differently?
What was your question, if I may ask?
Ask your question again for me, Evelyn.
Okay, I had asked the family, does what we're talking about line up with scripture when they talked about Noah, when the earth was flooded, and then the scripture says that it won't be water but fire next time. And I'll just ask, does that line up with what we're talking about as far as purification? And Ron had answered, and yeah, answered, yeah, that does line up with what we're talking about. And it is, I do believe also it's talking about the purification of our consciousness, right?
Yes, it is. I think it's interesting too that it says that the consciousness of the earth was altered by water. Noah means to rest or a place of rest. So how does that relate to the water, the fire? Is it talking about a place where the consciousness is washed away by water, and now it is left, the consciousness of the earth is left to the whims of man? Is it talking about the repose that man is taking comes as a result of this consciousness, this being a flooding, earth consciousness flooding the mindset of man? And the day will come when this mindset, this consciousness will be purified, meaning that it will be fire that brings does it say destruction? Let me look and see. Does it mean this destruction? As we have been told about destruction, to wipe out, to liberate. So are we saying that the consciousness of this earth was washed away? Because before Noah, it was saying that people had no affinity for God. They had lost their affinity for who they were. And if that being said, humanity had lost their affinity for knowing who they are. And it was the consciousness, the mindset of the earth that was in control of everything, inclusive of religion. And the religion that was prevalent did not recognize God. Would that not be the period that we have gone through for the last 500-600 years? with religion having created the abundance that we were in. Christianity brought that into existence. And here we are now in a period where our words are flames of fire, purifying the consciousness of this earth, making every effort for the flames that fall from our tongues to be flames of purification, burning the shell away, burning the outer core away, so that we can see clearly who we are, so that there will not be in existence anymore a lack of recognition as to who God really is. So this whole thing of rest with Noah and the flood could it possibly, yes, I do believe it's talking about we go through this period resting on our laurels and believing that that God is external of us. And now that we realize who we are, all of those thoughts are being purified so that the earth can have the same consciousness in it as does above, which says also that the manipulation of this portion of scripture came when there were delineations made between Cush and what those other two boys' name? Shem and
Japheth.
Shem, huh? Japheth. Yeah.
Yes.
So understanding what those three names represent, what they really mean, will give us the understanding of what came as a result, rather, of the flood. And this initiated the journey towards where we are now. I do not see this as being a period of history. It's not, the flood is not a historical thing at all. The flood is a message to us as to where we were and where we are to be in terms of the fire. And I do believe that we are living in the next time of this journey of Noah. I do believe that with everything in me. And because of that, our primary purpose for doing what we do is to truly embrace who we are. I also know that when Barbara begins to speak to the depression that so many of us have experienced and still experience, I do believe that this is a major undertaking, because change brings about depression. And the change that we are experiencing now is very difficult for some people to see with the eye as opposed to the eyes. And because of what people are seeing with their eyes and struggling to see with their eye, what you see with your eyes puts you in a state of depression, because whether it's conscious or subconscious, we get to that place of, how long, Lord? how long is it going to take? It's going to take as long as it takes. And we are the the impediments to the length of time that it takes, not purposely, of course.
Yeah.
The impediments to it because of the struggles that we have in rising above depression. Because when we are depressed, that means that we are heavy laden with overwhelmed with the experiences that we're having in this society and having a sense of defeat as opposed to seeing it for what it is, a necessary evil that's being shown so that mankind can desire more than this material world, and in doing so ultimately end up in the search finding who God is and embracing it. But that's very difficult to do when you're in and out of a state of depression. So I'm looking forward to that for more reasons than one, because I don't know anyone who has not either been in a state of depression or has battled with depression or still doing it. So I do know that this plays a pivotal part in being able to mount up with wings as eagles, to be able to see beyond what we are being shown, to be able to truly be burden bearers. If we are burden bearers, those burdens depress us, then we cannot bear the burdens of humanity because we're not focused on that. Our focus is shifted to whatever it is that's bringing us to this experience of depression. And the understanding of it would be a source of deliverance from it with the method of reminding ourselves of who we are and how we are to face this visitor whose name is depression. I think that's important. So anyway, I'm sure that you're ready, Barbara Jean, but today was necessary and is necessary for us to look at the feminine aspects of what brought all of this into existence and to reiterate the power of femininity. And let me share this with you, then I'm done speaking. Not done with this session, but done speaking. We are going to have intermittent discussions about the prevalence, presence, power of femininity of the cosmic mother. We're going to have intermittent discussions with it because this is one of the strongest, most resistant impediments that we are dealing with. And that is seeing femininity through the eye of femininity so we can get a true experience with femininity and bring things to a space of deliverance. So don't be surprised at the times that we think we're going to talk about one thing and we end up in the throes of the creation story, focusing on femininity. I'm done.
Can I back you up for a minute?
Yes, sir.
While you were speaking, a lot flashed in my head about water. Uh, and I just want to ask a question here, and you may have touched on this. Several of the creation stories, so I think about George and the Waters of Noon. A lot in some of the creation stories that I looked at, a lot of things were birthed from water. And I don't recall in many of them or where it talks about water being created. It almost sounds like when we're looking at this spiritually, that water always was, maybe. Uh, so in looking at it from that perspective, and I see it now as a womb more than anything. But getting back to Evelyn's question, I'm wondering how that fits in, or does it fit in? What are we being, does it show that you are overwhelmed from not trying to understand where you came from, or you're overwhelmed by not understanding the beginning and the safety or the refuge that you gain from going back to beginning? Does that play a role in that question? Or I don't know, a lot of things just kind of popped in my head when you were talking about this.
Water, ambionic fluid, water can be spiritually polluted by the thoughts of the one who's carrying the baby, or by the thoughts and interactions with someone who is spiritually polluted. And that purification of spiritual pollution has to take place by the way the child or is allowed to interact with the spiritual realm. If you think about it, most children that I have been around anyway, when they are young, they have all these imaginary friends and they have stories to tell, but they are moved away from that. And that is a polluting of the water in them. I do not believe that there was such a physical flood as much as it was an internal flood. Also, when you talk about the water's existence, water has always existed. Water is one of those things that man cannot make. Think about it. Water is hydrogen, two atoms of hydrogen and one of oxygen. But you can get all the H2O you want, but you can't make water. So water is a congealing of spiritual essence. And I see the water by virtue of being spiritual, the congealing spiritual essence is something that you cannot destroy, neither can you create. So when we think about the essence of water in our bodies, being made up mostly of water, when we think about that, how is it that I can make a statement that the waters, ambionic fluid, as well as the waters in our bodies, can be spiritually polluted? Well, the Japanese study that was done about water spoke entirely to that. Words that are antithetical to God or to Creator creates crystals that look like monsters, that are frightening, that are unsettling. And those same waters, when words of faith and words of trust and words of loving kindness are spoken, those crystals morph into patterns that are extraordinarily beautiful, that are extraordinarily inviting, that draws you to them. So when you mention water, Ron, when Evelyn talked about the water, the floods with Noah, both of those, the existence and meaning of both of those are predicated on what we say they are in terms of what water represents. We have walked around all of our lives, or at least the majority of it anyway, with crystals that mimic our spiritual monsters, because we walked around with religious belief that's antithetical to what spirituality is. And now we are at a place where we have embraced and continue to hold on to love and kindness and forgiveness, etc. Simply put, the principles of Ma'at. We hold on to them. And you say, well, that was a time when I would have responded in a different way. Someone says something to you, and you say something like, there was a time when I would cut them so low they could sit on a dime and swing their legs. That was during the period when the water, the crystals of the water looked like monsters. When you got to the place where rather than seek to hurt someone emotionally or physically, you looked at them with eye of compassion. That is, the reason for that is because you've embraced love and kindness. And you don't have the propensity within you to do that anymore, because the water has been spiritually purified. The reality of this is saying that in order for water to exist in the earth, spirit has to bring it to in existence along with hydrogen. Oxygen is spirit, is air. So this combination is what makes spirit take a shape of physicality in the form of water. And as I said, I'll repeat, even though you know it's H2O, you can't create it. So I hope that I'm not rambling. I hope there's some clarity in that and resonance in what I just said, Ron.
Yeah, you said a lot. We had talked about this, I guess, in another time, but I had not seen and thought about water represent what you say or how you change your mind. Looking at the crystals and them turning from something ugly into something beautiful based on your energy is what I heard. And yeah, that answers it. It's just a lot to think about. I think I got a question. I just don't know what it is yet. But thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I have a question, Pastor. What is the difference when a woman give birth the natural way than the one that give a birth through C-section?
That's a huge difference. A baby that's born naturally, when the baby comes through the womb, its immune system is enhanced. When a baby is born through C-section, the immune system is not as strong as it would have been had it come through the womb. Now, in a natural way, of course. Now, I would defer to Barbara Jean for a more in-depth understanding of that. Miss Nurse Lady, could you open that up a bit for us?
A lot of it has to do with the hormones that are secreted at the time of birth, and what they do, and how they protect, and how they have the ability to protect, which is bypassed when you don't have that. It's like, like pressing olives or pressing grapes. You extract something when you do that. Well, when the baby is coming through that womb, you have contractions that compress, and it's like creation. There are periods of rest and periods of activity, and during those periods of activity and rest, there's compression, and that compression causes a release of some of the hormones that can be protective. When you take a baby directly from the womb itself, there is not that process of compression rest. The baby is simply, the uterus is simply open and the baby extracted. And so it's a whole different thing, a whole lot different. And that's without going into a lot of detail.
Thank you, ma'am.
So it's almost like a butterfly in the cocoon.
If you look at the fact that cocoon offers that butterfly the opportunity to transform and become, in a sense, you're right.
Has there been any studies on the effect of the mother? Does the mother, I know the recovery has to be different. I just wonder are there any side effects to a C-section for her?
There are some physical side effects, the obvious ones are potential infection from blah, blah. But I've not read any articles lately that relate to the mental, because that's what I would see as the underlying kinds of things that you can't see.
Yeah.
I've not read anything, and there may be someone else on the phone who has, on the mental implications of the mother and what her experiences are from a C-section versus natural birth, particularly the one that may have had both.
Yeah.
Because you can have a natural birth first and then subsequently have a C-section. But generally what physicians do now is if you start with a C-section, they'll finish with a C-section, and the mom may not have that opportunity to experience natural birth.
Thank you. Charles, did that help?
Yes, that helped a whole lot. Because when I brought up the cocoon, if the butterflies stretch, pull, and all that right there, just like the one having a normal birth, okay. Now, if you tear that butterfly out of the cocoon, instead of him going through what he's going through, he don't have the strength like the other butterfly have.
Yeah. Good stuff, y'all. Any other
Ron, before we leave, I have a question.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
going to take us all the way back to Evelyn's question. And it may not, well, I'll just ask the question and we'll see. As I listened to Evelyn ask the question about fire, the first thing I was thinking and what was resonating on the inside as we spoke about it is that we are people of the sun. And the sun and fire, what they have in common is energy and motion. The heat is energy and motion. And the heat is what brings the purification. And I don't see the full picture of that altogether. So am I seeing correctly a correlation of understanding what it means to be people of the sun, or do we even understand what it means to be people of the sun and the energy and the fire, the energy and motion that we are? I just need you to tie that together for me, Pastor, if you will.
We are people of fire. When we talk about being the children of the sun, we are talking about children who have received from the sun and continue to receive their energy, their life energy from the sun. The sun and the people and the children of the sun are inseparable in that if the people from the sun, the people of the sun cease to exist in the earth, then all life in the earth will cease to exist. Why do I say that? Because the first people on earth are the children of the sun. And from them came the life in the earth. And the sun is the source of life for the people from the sun because of the melanin that it continues to produce within the material in this material world, especially in the children of the sun. So when we talk about the fire in the earth and its purifying qualities, that is no different than the sun and its purifying qualities. The sun purifies the earth constantly. The sun purifies us constantly if whether we recognize it or not. You can take contaminated cloth, or you can be contaminated, and the sun will kill those germs that are adverse to life. Also, the sun, being the life of the earth, is no different than the fire being the purifier of this earth also. So I don't see a difference between fire and the sun, because the same sun that warms can also burn. This fire that warms can also burn. If the sun did not make his trek through the various houses of astrology, then portions of the earth would die out. It is imperative that the sun touches the earth in every place of the earth, and that is the reason the rotation of the earth is necessary, but there's also the reason that the sun is very prominent when we look at its true purpose as well. One of the purposes that we don't think about is the contaminated soil. The soil has been contaminated, and as a result, it is very difficult to gain from it what we call organic food. It is my contention that if it were not for what we call climate change, the earth would be dead when it comes to producing food that can sustain life. And I say that without hesitation or reservation, because the longer the sun is able to present its strength to the earth, the more the soil is being purified, is being cleansed. Life is being brought into the earth, into the soil in a deep manner. So the heat from the sun that we experience, and we're talking about, we want seasons, and I definitely look forward to seasons. However, I do understand the necessity of the sun being as strong as it is during the periods when we were not, when we did not experience the strength and continual power of the sun. So when we talk about being people of the sun, we are talking about everything in this physical world being sustained by this sun, and the life of this world being sustained also by the melanated people in this world. I hope that resonates, Kat.
It does, and I'm wondering, and I may have missed this, as melanated people, understanding who we are, how do we bring about the purification of everything around us?
By purifying ourselves. We're contaminated with more than a mindset. We're contaminated by habits. There are times we are so caught up in the things of this earth until we subconsciously or consciously ignore what's important to us, or what should be anyway. For example, we prioritize things of this earth over spiritual things, and we do that too often. When our priority becomes life, when our priority ceases to be guided by this material world, it is then that not only will we begin to speak existence, speak things into existence, but we also be able to create a world where the destructive mindset does not prevail. In order for righteousness to prevail, melanated people, and I'm not talking about all, neither am I talking about majority, but melanated people must have a singular focus, a single priority, and that is to enhance humanity. Why is that so important? Because we have allowed humanity to suffer simply by not being aware of who we are. And being aware of who we are and still prioritizing the material world does not help anyone, not even ourselves.
Yeah.
Our priority, please hear me well, our priority must be humanity. That is one of the reasons we had to come out of a building. Our priority is not that building. Our priority is spirituality. Our priority is protecting the life that we brought into this earth. We don't see each other in those buildings, yet we do see each other. With us being where we are now, we listen more intently than we did being distracted in a building physically together. Now, we also and listening more intently, we also hear what's necessary for us to become even more aware of our responsibility as melanated people. That responsibility has as its primary goal balance and harmony for humanity. A world where melanated people are at the helm of existence as it was from the beginning. A world with melanated people at the helm, guiding humanity and making sure that every need of humanity is taken care of. God maintains life and sustenance for the people who God brought into this earth. And that's the responsibility of melanated people being God. And I reiterate, primary responsibility has to be spirituality. Primary priority spirituality. And everything, I promise you, everything for humanity will fall in place. Am I saying that you won't go through periods when you have to check yourself? No, I'm not. I'm saying you will go through periods when you check yourself. Spirituality does not become priority unless you check yourself. If I check you, or it doesn't really help anything, because if I check you, either you're going to be upset quietly, or you're going to ignore it and fall right back into this space where you were when you cease to allow spirituality to be your priority. That is the reason meditation is necessary. Check yourself and make sure that everything you do takes into account how it's going to affect humanity in a spiritual way. You say, but what about life itself? Life is life. And when you have these kinds of responsibilities on you, or when we have this kind of responsibility on us, when we are shouldering this kind of responsibility, there are so many things that we have to walk away from in life. We cannot continue to do things the way that we've always done them and expect to be God to humanity. It's just not going to happen that way. The God that we were taught about in church, we always said that if that God that we were taught about, if that God forgot us for a second, we would no longer exist. We always said that God knows every hair on our head, meaning that God is so attentive to us until we are the primary focus of God. Now that we understand that we melanated people of God, take those same principles and apply them to you. So attentive to spirituality until that becomes your central focal point. Without it, only death prevails. And death of which I speak is not death that takes your body to a cemetery. The death of which I speak is the mindset. It's the walking dead. Knowing that you are God does not mean that you're not a part of the walking dead. Just because you know who you are, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to walk in the power and presence of who you are. You can know that you are a mechanic, but never work as a mechanic. Knowing who you are doesn't mean you necessarily walk in the power and presence of who you are. If you don't walk in the power and presence of who you are, then saying that you are God is just as empty as a glass waiting for water, but never getting it. Words are filled with power and presence when they are fulfilled, not when they are simply spoken. When those words are filled with spirit, with power and presence, when those words are filled and you act on those words, you live those words, it is then when they become more effective. If we could focus sincerely, totally, without a doubt, on the essence of who we are, coupled with our responsibilities, and that's our central priority, we could change things tomorrow. We have to take the initiative and make the efforts if it is to be done. And I say to you, it is to be done. It must be done. And as for me and the voice that lives within, the direction that live within, I have chosen above everything else to not just stand in the gap, but become the gap. Not just become the gap, but become the teacher in the gap. Become the God that humanity can see. Become that entity that others are drawn to and don't understand why. And having been drawn to me, it is up to me, not to quote scripture, but to exude the energy of Elohim, of God, of the melanated deity that I am. The same is up to each of you. It is on your shoulders. It is a decision that you have to make, because humanity is dependent on it. I'm done. Kathy, does that resonate?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Can I add something to that? And you said a lot, Pastor, but I see it all connecting together. When you were talking about the water, and the crystals either being deformed or beautiful based on the words spoken. Our bodies are what, 70% water?
At least.
So one way we can purify ourselves is to speak encouraging words to ourselves. And so that the water crystals in our body are the ones that we want and the ones that we need. I also see that as connected to depression, the way we speak to ourselves and the way we speak of our internal thoughts, the way we speak to ourselves. Also connected to mindset that you were talking about, the way we speak to ourselves. So yes, we have to, the only way that we are purified is that we do it for ourselves. And a simple, practical way is thinking about how you speak to yourself, your internal voice, um, and being conscious of what you're saying to yourself, so that you can keep those beautiful crystals of water in your body, that then affects your whole outlook, your whole physical as well as spiritual self.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. There is no doubt in that at all. We must do that. That's imperative for us to remind ourselves not of our priorities, but of our priority, period. Having that priority does not mean that you don't care about those around you, that you don't look out for them. Having that priority means that even when you're doing that, it is a message that's being put in the macro so that others would be cognizant of the needs of those around them as well. Are there any questions or comments, or is there any input to what we are discussing? I just discussed or presented.
I wanted to say something to what you were saying about the water crystals. I can't remember exactly what college it is, but it's some college out of the United States, and they have been doing a study, and they basically have been taking like patients that are like have just various different conditions, and they had one group where they were just using regular medicine, regular conventional treatment and stuff like that, and the other ones they were using. They would have them speak every morning and throughout the day. They would tell themselves that I'm getting better, I'm healed, and stuff like that. And they have basically have data showing that the people who actually told themselves that they were getting better and spoke to their illness got better faster. And also what you were saying about with the water, when we talked about water, and how the molecules change and they crystallize and things like that. We also have to be careful on what we listen to, what we hear. Like sometimes, I mean, I know what's going on in the world, and you see all this crazy stuff going on in the news. Sometimes you have to kind of separate yourself and disconnect from that. I mean, just not to hear, just for your own well-being. I mean, we know who we are, and we know what we can do, and we know that what we're supposed to be doing, but just constantly just sitting around looking at the news and stuff and listening to Donald Trump all day, that isn't doing anything for your well-being. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah,
remember, and we have to be that, just not only to the world, but be that to ourselves, and to speak those things into ourselves so we can see ourselves transform. So that's it.
Thank you, Don. What you just said, when you listen to something and it angers you, the crystals in your body are deformed. When you're angry because you wish somebody was dead or you wish you could stop somebody, every time that we wish we could stop somebody, we are saying that we can't. Every time that we wish we could change something, we're saying that we can't. It's no longer a wish. It's not even a desire. It is a reality. Because everything that you desire has not gotten here yet. Everything you embrace is in the now. but desires are not in the now. You're looking for something to get to you or to come to you or for you to get to a space to embrace it. So don't concern yourself with what's happening in the news if it's disconcerting to you, if it's detrimental to you, if it angers you, if it causes you to go into a state of depression or to say what if or when. Just don't look at it. There are those who are guided to those kinds of things, and they can look at those things and they can talk about those things and they can understand the signs of the times without being affected by it. Think about it this way. The God that we were taught about in church could look at all kinds of ugliness and not change its righteous ways. That's who we are. We are melanated divinity. If the aspects of humanity, of your humanness or the mindset does not permit you to be able to listen, to see without having an adverse effect on you, don't do it. Stay away from it. I'm done. There are no questions or comments. I'm done for today.
I have one comment, Reb. When you were talking about the sun and stuff, I remember when I was in the hospital, and I had all these wounds and stuff open. The doctor administered me some medicine because he said that medicine was very strong as stuff there is. And I had reaction from it because when it was going through my body, it felt like fire burning all over me. And then I went in convulsion of going high, heating up. And then they had to put ice on it or melting it. And then they had put me a blanket with coils in it and had a chill on it to make the water run through it so fast. Anyone have time to heat up. And they could just rake the frost off of it. Then my body dropped too cold. I can understand it, the heat and the 4 seasons. And he had when he got me straightened out, he said, "You got to take this medicine. I got to go back to the drawing board and find out how can you take this medicine because you got all these open wounds on you, and you prone to a lot of infection because my prosthesis leg, it was filling up with gangrene, and I didn't want it to be cut off no more. And they were using these toothpicks that you clean your teeth out. They had to shoot me up with morphine to clean that out. And then the doctor came back to me. He said, I found it. He said, I got to give you some medicine. I don't know what kind of medicine it was at that. I knew at that time, but I didn't know. I don't know now. They had to shoot me with a needle to where it drowsed me and put me out like you're getting ready to put you out to operate on you. And then they had to give me some kind of pill to take to help react that stuff. And then they administer that stuff. And I fall on to sleep and I couldn't feel the burn because he said I had to have it. There's no other way that all the open wound will heal and won't get infected from all kind of the stuff. And that's why you need the 4 seasons to heal germs. And that heat it had to go through my body to keep the germ from attacking me in the body. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do. So the bottom line is how much we have to be cautious about the propensity we have for infection. The sun itself protects us from that because it kills the bacteria that is adverse to our life, the life of this body. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Charles. And I suppose that we will be ready tomorrow.
I did have one question that I wanted to ask before we go, please.
Okay, wait 1 second, Keita, let me finish.
Okay.
So we'll be ready tomorrow for the to look at how depression affects us spiritually. Go ahead, Keita.
Okay, I wanted to go back when you were talking about desire being kind of like admitting you don't have it. I wanted to understand how, because as I look at things, there are certainly things that I want that are not yet reality. And knowing like, yes, they will be, but how, like, I mean, I just kind of got stuck on the fact when you were saying like desire is kind of like an admission that it's not there or wanting. So how do you, I guess, reconcile that with things that are changing for you to not be like, I guess, with a more of a lack mentality or like wanting. You get what I'm saying? Because I remember a time when we were talking about like everything stems from desire.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we reconcile what you said today as it relates to that?
When I was talking about desire today, I'm talking about spiritual desire. Our spiritual desire is for humanity to be balanced, right?
Right.
Well, as long as we desire it, we don't see it. However, I also said when you desire, you're not living in the now. So our desire for humanity to be balanced is spiritual. And it is true, it is present. It has not manifested in the physical. The question becomes why? It is no different than when we were talking about what was going to happen. And we did not begin seeing it happen, or manifested rather, until we begun to talk about it is happening as we speak. It just not has manifested yet. So when you are talking about your desires in this material world, that is a bit different than spiritual desires. Desires in this material world is bound by time. Desires in the spiritual world is not. Everything spiritual is present. So there is a difference between you desiring to get a job, which is bound by time, and you desiring to see balance with humanity. Does that resonate, Keita?
Yeah. And maybe I had a misunderstanding of the spiritual desire because I was not just talking about material world stuff. I kind of was talking about both. But yeah, that helps reframe it. Some of it does need to be a little reframed in my mind, but
Okay.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Well, spiritual, the reason I made that delineation, Kate, Keita, is because spirituality is about living in the now. There's no past, no present, it's just the now. And our mindset is still wrestling with what the now looks like
Right.
in terms of
Absolutely.
spirituality. You're
Yes.
not the only one whose mind is wrestling with that. So that reality still exists. So that we can wrap our mind around it, just like prioritizing spirituality. Our minds have not been wrapped around that yet. Trying to figure out what that looks like in relationship to our interactions in this material world with friends, with family, with employers, employees, etc. If we don't talk about it, if we don't make every attempt to process what we're talking about, do we ever get to that place? No, we don't. That's why it's so important that we have these discussions, because as we put things in the macro, we also are bringing clarity to us as well. I'm done.
Thank you, everyone who for the discussion today and for your energy. Great discussion. So, good place to pause. Let's look at what we mentally look at what we've discussed, and if we have questions, write them down or hold on to them, and we'll resume tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day, and
Bye.
thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, family.
Bye.
Bye,
Goodbye, everyone.
everyone. Have a great day.